Hello my people, welcome to the floor of my office where at the moment I am surrounded by what is carnage, just carnage, because I've made a few videos. This video is all about costuming and how costuming can make something's really obvious in a performance, and I'm just going to show you through a couple of different playbills of some performances, and we're going to talk about I'm going to talk and you're going to listen about how costumes sometimes meet our expectations in an audience and they fill in the blanks, or lead us down a path where we come to understand things. So please enjoy some of the more absurd playbills that I could find, because well, not so much absurd. Some of them are absurd. One of them's particularly absurd, but mostly it was just a fun sort of recollection and able to look down a few things anyway. So, here we go. Oh, what have we here? Is this a copy of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child signed by the cast? I think it is. Yeah, I left that in there. Oh, look, that's my tickety-wickety from London. Anyway, that's just a flex right there. Okay, so here we've got some costumes. We've got Hermione, we've got Rose, and we've got Ron Weasley. Now the thing is that we already know Ron and Hermione from the movies, so there's got to be some indications in what they're wearing about what we know about them. I mean, obviously this is not Emma Watson and this is not Rupert Grint, but there's some oversizedness in the clothes, and there's some Weasley-esque moments, and Rose has got a very Hermione feel about the way she's standing and put together in her uniform. Then the next lot you're going to totally recognise. Draco and Scorpius. So the costumes here, they're harking back to what we know about Harry Potter and what we know about wizards, because there's wands and stuff, as well as what we know about the characters from the books and the movies. Like, this is clearly Draco grown up, because we're blonde and we're Draco, and Scorpius has got this Harry Potter-esque hair going on, even though he's Scorpius. Love Scorpius, he's a terrific character. So in this respect, the costumes are trying to fill us in on what we're missing. We know about Hogwarts and the magical world because we've lived it for so long, and in this particular play, here we've got this opportunity to relive it in a different time frame. Right, now this is Matilda, terrific musical if you haven't seen Matilda, Miss Trunchpole. Now Miss Trunchpole is always played by a man, much like the mother in Hairspray is always played by a man as well. So when we look at the costuming, we've got some very masculine costuming, but it's slightly feminised. That Miss Trunchpole is always in a skirt, but is clearly a man, and it's the kind of character that's very manly for many respects. Here we've got the stretching out ear thing. The particular reason I chose this page is that this is obviously school PE. You know, we've got that hideous sort of PE costume, PE costume, school socks, things that we recognise as being, these are school children. If you look closely, these are not school shoes, these are not PE shoes, but these are jazz shoes that these kids can dance in, because it's a heavily musicy, dancey production. So you've got Miss Trunchpole, who's clearly a man in women's clothing, but not trying to come across as being a woman, coming across as a very manly woman. This particular bit here with the stretchy ears, that torturous nature of Miss Trunchpole. Now these ears, you could decide, is this part of the costuming for this child? That Miss Trunchpole has to be able to pull the ears. So they're latex, they're stretchy, all that kind of stuff. If we look at what the costumes are made of, we've got stretchy, breathable fabric, because all of these people are going to be moving and sweating a lot. We've got shoes that are going to make no noise as they move around, and are going to stay on and allow them to dance. So those are practical considerations. As far as the considerations go about being on stage and performing, those are taken care of. As far as the design considerations, we know what PE gear looks like. And so this expectation in the audience that PE gear has like the collar and all the rest of it, you know, that's what we expect PE gear to look like. Right? Right, what's next in our pile? Oh, Book of Mormon. Went to see this with AJ, had a great time. So, the Book of Mormon, I'm going to pick up my Hermione wand, because no one needs to see my fingers. Right, so, Book of Mormon. It's written by the South Park guys, which should tell you a lot about it. if you look at the costuming, particularly for the Mormon elders who do a lot of singing and dancing, you recognise what they're wearing if you've ever seen a Mormon. And clearly this is a much bigger label than you're ever going to get for somebody in real life. But the white shirt, black tie, black trousers, that's what we know Mormon missionaries look like. All right, so as far as our audience expectation as to what our character is, this is filled in. As far as changing it for on stage, this is a bigger name tag so that you can see it from the audience. If we have a look up here we've got while they're on their job in Africa. So we've got hints of African-esque fabrics, and then we've got some little things that are coming in, like this guy over here, he's wearing a Chicago Bulls singlet. So there's a hint to the fact that these people are revering an American way of life. We've clearly got our Mormons that are standing out with their massive little name tags and the costumes that we know and love. Now, what are these pants going to be made out of? They're going to be something stretchy because these people are doing a lot of dancing. This is not going to be straight off the shelf at the warehouse pants and shirt because they've got far too much to do in it. Whereas, say, her dress here could easily be more off the rack because it's already in a design that can be moved in a lot. If that makes sense. If you look at this particular picture here, you're getting an idea of the amount of movement that these particular performers are going to have to be in. So you're going to want pants that have some elasticity to them, as well as shoes that don't make a lot of sound that you can dance in. So these things are considerations that you'd be thinking about in terms of performing, whereas for the performance and for the audience's expectation of what people should look like, here we've got a Mormon missionary and we've got an African rebel. And that's what we think they look like in our head anyway. All right, what's next in my pile? Ooh, Chicago, little bit sexy. So these guys here, if you know the musical Chicago, we've got a musical set with a couple of women lots of women who are murderers in the 1920s. It's lots of jazz, it's a very sexy musical. These people are doing some very burlesque style dances and talking about how they killed the men in their lives. So what they've got is very dancey, very much in black because they're the bad guys, even though we like them because everybody in the play is a bad guy, to be completely honest. You've got this fishnet, so we're getting all the things that we know and associate with dance and burlesque and that particular time frame of being excess. Now, it's not particularly 1920s in what they're wearing. It's definitely more, this is burlesque, this is what we expect burlesque to look like. So here we've got a costume designer who's actively decided not to go straight 1920s. Hints of it with the tassels, but mostly if we were in the 1920s, this here would be a very square dress. It would be quite short, it would have tassels to amplify the movement. We're going to have lots of chains, we're going to have headdresses and feathers and signs of excess, but instead what we've got is what we associate with burlesque today. A little bit more scantily clad, but the things that we anticipate, like the fishnets, like the exposed midriffs and things like that, but enough to hint at who the characters are as well once you know them. All right. Here we've got one of my faves, Starlight Express. Now, if you don't know Starlight Express, it is a train race, like a toy train race narrated by a tiny child. And if you have a look at the costumes, these are insane. So we've got a brick train, and we've got an electric train, and we've got the royal train with this little Union Jack, or Union flag, if you will. So if you look closely, these are all on roller skates because the entire performance is done on roller skates. It's completely mental. Completely mental. It's so much fun. If you get a chance to see Starlight Express, totally do it. So what you've got is people who have these hats that are reminiscent of the smokestacks on the top of trains. You've got wheels so they can physically all join together and make a train. But then they're starting to hint at what their role is. So here we've got the smoking car. So someone dressed up like they're selling cigarettes in the oldie-timey days. if we look at, we've got here the armoured money car with this sort of very strong metallic look covered in, you know, the electric car, who's the electric train. He's very cool, let's be honest. He's bright blue and bright red, and he doesn't have the smokestack because he's electric, but he's got that pointiness that we associate with, like, the trains, that, you know, the super fast bullet trains and stuff like that. So what you get is they can't clearly be trains because they're people, and they still have to sing, and they still have to be on roller skates. But the roller skates are a performance consideration. These are the things that they need to physically perform in to do the show. As far as all these other bits and pieces go, it's hinting at the things such as, this is a hip-hopper too, he's a boxcar, so he's got this hip-hop-esque thing going on his belly. He's got some bling, isn't it cute? He's wearing a bandana because nothing's more street than a bandana. This guy's Russian, you can tell. So how do you make people look like trains? They're more boxy and they're more robotic. Very much like if you're not cross-dressing, that's not the word, cosplaying as a transformer. You've got this brick guy who's got this brick motif into the fabric of what he's wearing. These are all lycra-y, or very, very much things you can move in, because they have to be able to move, because they spend the entire show on rollerblades. It's quite incredible, and sing at the same time. So they don't look like trains, but they're reminiscent of trains. And when you see them all together and they start singing about the fact that they are trains, then cool, they've got it sorted. And the last one I wanted to look at is a big scene from Wicked. So here we are, according to the writing, in the Emerald City. And what do we have? We've got all these characters that are dressed in greens and yellows. The lighting effects are clearly in blues and greens, so it's amplifying it. But what we've got is this idea of opulence, this idea of emeralds, and over the top. So all of these sort of slightly, steampunk. So we've got Victorian, we've got ruffles, we've got this futuristic, Mad Hatter-esque feeling of opulence in this particular location. And what we've got is this colour motif dragging them all together. That the people in the Emerald City, of course, are all wearing green. They actually all have glasses. If you've read the book, you wear the glasses because actually it's not emerald. The wizards just told everybody that the emeralds are so sparkling you need to cover your eyes, but the glasses are just green lensed so that everybody thinks they're looking at green. But that's just in the book. So what we've got is this idea of a colorscape being used. So sometimes when you're doing costume design, you can think about what the colours might be meaning, or what the audience is going to interpret from the use of colour and style. Again, how much are these people going to have to physically do in these outfits? Probably not a lot compared to some of the others, but we have got shorter skirts than you would normally see on someone on stage, so that you can more easily move around. This woman's got quite a long one, but I think it's also because she's bending down quite a bit. They can all see their own feet, so they can move around. They can see each other's feet. These guys have quite a lot of movement going on in their physical body posture, which is telling you that they've got a lot of space in their pants. Their pants are either stretchy or there's enough space in there that they can easily move and conduct the activities that they need to do. So mostly, what do you need to go on with? You need to know what it is that your characters physically have to do to design the costume for. If they have to do a very complicated dance sequence, you're going to want clothing that they can dance in. If they're doing a massive death scene where they get stabbed, you're going to need some way of having that pocket for the blood to come out, if that makes sense. So you need to know what the characters are going to do, and then you're going to need to know how does that dictate what you're going to make the costumes out of. Do you need to physically be able to move and stretch, or is it more important, much like Snape in Harry Potter, that everything is constricted so that movement becomes quite stilted? Anyway, we'll talk more about that later on, but for now I'm hoping that helps.